Good evening. Welcome to Investigator News, and we will have trivia in the following hour. But right now we have William. This is William's show. So go ahead, William. You're the host.
All right. So we have some interesting information that's come out on the Trump assassination attempts. Now, when the Secret Service go out and to ascertain an area, to check and see what's there, whether it's, weather, geology, temperature, nuclear, biological, chemical, or just topography, when they do their assessments to where a candidate or president or even a visiting dignitary is, what they do is something like what in the military we understood. So whenever we go to in the military, the first thing we would do is assault an area. Okay, we would have a particular area in mind to strip an enemy of. So we would assault it, right? And as soon as we started to gain perimeter control, then we'd go through and do a sweep. Well, the Secret Service does the same sort of thing. They call it post, sweep, and hold. So the first thing they do is they go and post an area with Secret Service agents, meaning they make a perimeter through which nothing comes in or out of that perimeter without having eyes on it. Then they do a sweep. And when we talk about sweeps, is they go through and check everything, meaning maybe using dogs, drones, aircraft, photography, and then they look for things like nuclear, chemical, and biological threats, right, for the person, their protectee. And then they hold that area. So first they post it, then they sweep it, then they hold it, then they introduce their protectee into the area. Well, at the second assassination attempt, guess what they didn't do? They didn't do post, sweep, or hold. Now, this is a known golf course that Trump was going to, right? And even with all of that, understanding the threats of that area, having already understanding the topography of this thing, they failed to do all of their jobs, with the exception of the body detail. The body detail is they use their body armor to wrap themselves around a protectee if a threat presents itself, right? So that's a pretty bad thing. Now, the second attempt, now, they already knew, okay, and Matt Gaetz on Jack Krasovic's show says there are 5 known hit teams functioning in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
All right? 3 are foreign hit teams, like Iran or whoever, but you get the idea. Foreign hit teams, meaning they're not American. And these people all use coded language, so they're hard to track. And then we have 2 domestic hit teams that are out there functioning. Now, the FBI knows this, and we haven't heard about these people being rounded up yet. They should disrupt this thing before an assassination attempt happens. Well, the DHS and Secret Service are saying, well, we don't have the finances, the personnel, and enough equipment to get the job done, right? Well, they did a great job 10 years ago, and since then, they've had, in real dollars today, not dollars 10 years ago, they've had their funding increased by 65%. So it's gone from 2.2 to 3.3 billion dollars. Okay, they've gone from 62,000 Secret Service agents to 83,000, and they're part of the Department of Homeland Security, and DHS has 190,000 with 240,000 agents that could be detailed to Secret Service work. Yet they still can't seem to figure out how to get this job done, even though Iran has a number of Republicans and other administration officials whom targeted one of the Iranian leaders that was transiting into Iraq and was killed by a drone. So there's a fatwa out on these people. And knowing that, they still haven't learned anything, okay? They still haven't learned anything from the first assassination attempt, right? So the first assassination attempt was, the roof's too hot, it's sloped, right? Rainwater will come off from it. It's too much. It's just too much. Now it's shrubs. Shrubs are terrible. They're in the way. Well, one of the on Dan Bongino show, they showed a clip of where this guy had secreted himself, right? And then they asked, hunters in the United States, if you want to know how to do long range work, talk to hunters or talk to special forces, right? They're all about this stuff. And what they were saying is they didn't even need a glass on top of that SKS. You could do it with open sights. In fact, you could do it from the hip. You don't even need to aim. You could just do it by muscle memory. It's crazy. That's absolutely crazy that the Secret Service is being reactive. So, Robert Rowe, the new acting director of Secret Service, just decided 2 days ago at a hearing in Congress that they're going to go from a reactive to a proactive state. Reactive. How do we get to reactive? How did they even get to reactive? Reactive means you don't have a protectee anymore. They're completely off the rails. And who has been punished for all this? No one. In fact, in the last month, many of them have, in upper management that were in control of this whole thing, have got raises and promotions. Almost all of them. After the debacle in Pennsylvania, and before this mess at the golf course, this isn't incompetence. If you have one incompetency, that's a mistake, right? If you have multiple layers of incompetency, that's not a mistake anymore. That's a directed activity. So let's say I'm out in Philippine waters in my Coast Guard cutter, and along comes this swarm of or Chinese Coast Guards. Well, if one hits you, that could be an accident, right? That's just one one oops. But if you're an anchor and it hits you and then comes back and hits you the second time, that's not by accident. That's a directed activity. And that's what we saw at the golf course. No posting, no sweeping, no holding before the protectee got there. They did have medical, so they had some medical staff. It's been hot, in Florida. And a lot of these golf courses have actually been shut down because they don't want people, dropping off from the heat, as well as tearing up the golf courses because it's really difficult to keep them watered, keep the fertilizer on them without them burning up, and maintained. You just don't want people on the grass when the turf is that stressed. And so the president had no problem going out to that golf course, right? If you're part of the club, you're part of the club. And so he goes golf course. They didn't announce it first. Okay, so it wasn't announced. It wasn't part of the calendar of what Trump was going to do, right? It was kind of towards the spur of the moment, but Secret Service had time to do their job before he got there. That wasn't a problem. And yet none of this is done. It looks intentional. So that's my thoughts. We're starting to get those types of thoughts from like Matt Gaetz and I forgot his name suddenly. Okay, we're just going to go on. So enough of and Tucson. We had like 20 people get very sick, had their faces swell up, had their eyes affected, blurry vision. That these people went to local hospitals. It got worse as they had left the venue where Trump had been speaking at the rally, and Trump could have walked through that poison area. Well, they assume it's poison, right? So, in air quotes, gee, this could have been poison. But they don't know. They didn't do a nuclear, biological, or a chemical sweep before they went in. And they have these devices, okay? The military has had these since way back in the 80s. We can detect anything. We can detect explosive materials, atomic materials. We can not only detect chemicals, but which chemicals and at what doses, right? And to some degree, in real time, they can detect biological things, right? Bad diseases, whatnot, aerosolized bioweapons. So we don't know what happened to these 20 people, and this could have been another attack on President Trump. Now they're talking chemical.
William, wasn't there a car full of explosives they found in San Diego that they said was going towards Trump?
So here was the deal with the explosives in the Blue Barrel at another rally. But this is out
Nevada, yeah.
on the perimeter. This wasn't in towards Trump. This is where the people come through that go to the rally. All right. So we're told that a dog picked up traces of a chemical or a explosive device, right? So the dog sniffed it. They bring in people. The government reacts to it. You know, bomb squads come in, all this other stuff. People are diverted around it. And the government's response was, well, this wasn't really, we didn't really find an explosive device. And, oh, by the way, we were just training dogs at the perimeter of
Trump rally.
a Trump rally. Yeah, sure. That's where you do it, for sure, right? They're just withholding every bit of information that they can possibly do, right? They just don't want any information out. At the same time, they're stonewalling us, failing to do their job, and oh, by the way, down at Disney World, they're going to have a convention for all LGBTQIA, other derivatives, 3-day conference at Disneyland while they're trying to go through this election. It's nuts. And, well, of course, the leadership right now at Secret Service, Roe, Cheadle, these are people who are out, you know, of the closet. So why is this leadership so terrible? Is it they can't focus? Or is it intentional? Is it government interference on an election? Okay, I guess we're done with that. I just get grumpy about it. It's, you know, I came from the Air Force. There's nothing about that whole situation I and a group of people I was trained with in electronics could not get done in minutes as an airman. Not a Marine, not special forces, just maintenance, aircraft maintenance. You know, guys that chase sparks. We could get it done in minutes. None of this makes sense to us. Alrighty. So we have some global actors, let's call them, that they're not elected, yet they want to have a say in all that we can say, do, and think. And we've got one there in Europe that wants to affect the United States and our media, Main Street media, by the name of Klaus Schwab. And we just call him a prophet of doom. Then we've got this Soros guy and his clone son that I think. But anyway, going around and causing all kinds of mayhem all over the world, like Ukraine. He was down there amping up problems there. At the same time, Victoria Nuland was down there inciting war, right? Pure chaos. So, well, they can make money from it, and then he can get involved with more NGOs to try to control governments and government spending, but having political sway without having to go through an election. The one thing we found with these folks is they hate voters. They're terrified of voters. The one thing they're afraid of is voters. So they'll do anything to subvert the situation, but they won't involve themselves like in a political race. And we have another one over here, Mr. Jab and Stab, Billy Gates. that he doesn't want it so that any vaccine manufacturer can be, so people have a negative opinion and share it over the internet if he's involved in one of his, grab and inoculate campaigns, right? So we know into the future with AI, in the next 4 years, world is going to change for us in how it works. Like the revolution of the internet has been on the world, and there's still like, what did I have? 2.6 billion people in the United States aren't connected yet. But there's, 7.5 billion people out there. So the majority of humanity is connected to the internet now. Now they're going to roll out this AI thing. And Apple has, if you look at your Apple phone and you happen to look at it at an advertisement on there, it tracks what your eyes stop on, right? So if you're walking down the street and you saw a nice car, and you have your Apple phone and it's got its little camera thing going, they can tell what your eyes stop on and, send you advertisements for that kind of vehicle and maybe custom parts and, things you can add to a vehicle like that. Maybe you'd want to buy a vehicle like that where you could, where those types of vehicles might be located nearest to you, all these kinds of things. Well, we have a defense manufacturer right now that has come out with an AI program and devices through DARPA. Remember, DARPA started the internet. It used to be called ARPANET. And scientists use it to transfer information about research. So they get that information transferred quickly around the United States, for people like DARPA and university research parks that are contracting with the government, or the government has funded their research that can be used towards military objectives. So that started. Then it got loose, right? It got out of the bag, and that started like 30 years ago. Now we have this internet thing. We have these social media sites. Now, where did they come from originally? Oh, turns out those were DARPA projects too. And then they became part of startup projects, and the government funded the startups, and then the things, got out and running, and we ended up with people like Apple and Microsoft and Google. These were all defense programs. Well, the government wants to be able to control these folks, right? And because that technology, those patents the government had were transferred, to people doing startups, MIT or the Bay Area, or down at what's the name of the big university in California? Anyway, so these are public-private partnerships. All right, they're not contracted. Meaning, if I was a maker of something the government wanted, say some widget used on an airplane or a tank or chocolate cookies that end up in MREs. It doesn't matter. You're a contractor, right? So it's not a partnership. There is a set contract that says you will do X, X, and X, provide X amount at certain quality, right, and over a certain period of time. And if you violate that, then there are penalties that you'll have to pay, right? Or they can say, well, we're in a national emergency. We're going to give you funds to accomplish something, and you can spend whatever it takes to get there. But, you know, it has to be documented, returned to the government. But we're going to fund you 100%, right? Right up front. Whatever it takes to get this job done. That's a contract. But these public-private partnerships, you've got like Microsoft, you've got Apple, you've got, what's the name of Amazon? All these people that are involved, and they're pushing the government around using these partnerships. For a great instance is Homeland Security using part of, you know, their $190 billion a year funding. They can pay to have church organizations or political organizations care for migrants coming through and then transport them wherever they need to be in the country, right? This is a public-private partnership, so things don't look bad on the border. They're able to use these and push government policy through these partnerships. I think these are terrible. So, here we go. Bill Gates of Microsoft has decided that we shouldn't have free speech regarding vaccines. And he wants to use AI to police everybody on the planet. So first of all, if you go to speak it over the internet, social media, they want to catch it immediately. Like not tomorrow when the damage is already done, but immediately. So they want to scan the internet continually with AI and have that stuff seized from the internet. And they want to be able to prosecute you. That's not the only thing they've been thinking of. We've been hearing about where they want to anticipate a felony happening before it does. It's like taxing people on income that hasn't been realized yet, right? So they put people on lists and they try to disrupt them. And we've just found in Congress that the U.S. government's involved in kind of bump and rub operations. You know, when you go to NASCAR and you get involved in a road race, right? They're constantly bumping into each other and rubbing each other on the racetrack to try to get position, try to get ahead of the pack. Well, the government has actual operations right now to bump and rub people towards political ends or towards political policy. All right? These aren't things that they're going to put somebody in jail, but they might intimidate people. They might take away certain opportunities that people didn't know they were going to have into the future before the folks get there to kind of suppress them. So, yeah, Bill Gates wants to use AI to police us on the internet. And by the way, at the same time, the United Nations decided they want to have a global digital compact to control the internet worldwide. So let's say you have 8 countries in Europe that are upset about something on the internet, and we're talking about it in the United States. Well, they could coerce the United States now into not allowing that free speech, even though we have free speech in this country, and those countries in Europe were part of the United Nations. So they're trying to subvert the nation states that way. They want to get the internet to another 2.6 billion people that are unconnected from the internet. Now imagine you just got on the internet for the first time, right? You've never been on it before, and suddenly you encounter AI, right? You've got your little assistant that's sitting up there on the table, and the assistant starts ending your sentences for you, right? It's that involved in your life. Imagine how people are going to go from no internet to one that can coerce them instantly. Are they going to be aware of that sort of thing? It's a huge amount of power. And we've seen with NATO, countries in Europe that want to wag the dog, the U.S. military, to get the U.S. military to do work that they can't get done by themselves, right? So maybe the King of England wants the United States to fight Russia in Ukraine. So he caused a big stir with the NATO chiefs, and our diplomats go there, and at the very last minute, the President of the United States says, no, that wouldn't be a good thing. Thank God that happened. But what about this global digital compact affecting not just our military, but everyone's lives in the world simultaneously, keeping track of where our eyes go, using DARPA technology through defense contractors to get that to happen. And not just United States defense contractors, okay? All the defense contractors globally. Doesn't matter if you're in a communist country, a socialist country, a democratic country, an Islamic country, everybody. So they can keep track of where your eyes land. So they can start to decide on what your thoughts are going to be before you know the thoughts are going to be there. And that's what Billy wants to do right now. And to that end, he is contracting with, this requires a huge amount of electrical power to run these server farms AI are on. So guys, back in the 80s, there was this, 70s, I'm sorry, in the 70s, there was a partial meltdown of a reactor at 3 Mile Island in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And the president, Jimmy Carter at the time, being a nuclear engineer, was able to go in and assure the public that everything was going to be safe, even though there was a minor release of radioactivity. Well, they had more than one reactor in that site. Okay, so they shut down the bad reactor and began, they pulled the rods that they absolutely could. They fished out the rods that they couldn't pull immediately, and then they started a cold quenching of the reactor. Shut it down, get it cooled off, stop the fission waste byproducts from getting into the air. Well, there's a second reactor, and that reactor can, create electricity for, 1.5 million homes. Bill Gates just contracted with that reactor that's shut down over financial issues, but it is up to regulations until 2035. So it's just a matter of some inspections, going through a government restart program, and then start producing electricity. He's going to use an entire reactor to run his server farm in Pennsylvania.
Oh. William, it's about that time.
Well, we've had lots of things going on in the world. I've got a million other things to talk about, but time's running out, and I'll save some for Monday, and we hope that you'll meet us on Monday, and we'll have some more world news.
Yeah, world news with me and you, and trivia's in about 30 minutes or 20 minutes. And so, William, we thank you, and great show. And like he said, we'll be back on Monday, except for we got trivia in 20 minutes. Okay, William, great show. And subscribe and hit that like button, folks. And over there and Facebook, follow us. So
thanks, folks, for coming by and visiting with us. We'll
That's
see you
right.
Monday.
Thanks for watching for sure. Okay.